What makes the prairie? Historically, it would have been a lot of things.
It's an autumn Saturday afternoon at the Homestead Monument of America in Beatrice, Nebraska. And a handful of volunteers get a quick history lesson from Jesse Bully, the monument's natural resource specialist.
This is the site of the first homestead claim that was filed in the United States. We were created back in 1936 to tell the story of the Homestead Act of 1862 and the impacts that that law had on the United States of America.
The monument is a historical site, but today's focus won't be on history. The volunteers are here for a bit of botany.
We're on the very western edge of the tallgrass prairie region. It's known for its very deep, dark, fertile soils. Most of that area has been converted to farmland. By some estimates, less than 1% of the original prairie remains in the United States.
Armed with brown paper lunch sacks, Bully and the volunteers head out to the ground's 100 acres of restored tallgrass prairie.
You're gathering native prairie seeds for use in future maintenance and restoration efforts here at the monument. We're going to focus, like I said, mainly on the warm season grasses. And so this one here is the Indian grass, harvesting the seed. All we're doing is just stripping it off and put it in your bag. We're trying to collect as much seed as we can, so if we need it in the future, we can use the native local eco-type seed.
This is a small operation. The volunteers and Bully work for a few hours, filling their sacks and enjoying the sun.
Boy, talk about Zen prairie experience. And it's a nice day to do it.
In the end, they'll have a 5-gallon bucket filled with a mix of seeds, ranging from milkweed to Indian grass, that will go into storage with seeds from other collection days. These seeds will be on hand if heavy rains create a washout on the grounds, or if areas need to be restored from man-made projects. This ounce of preparation today could go a long way in making future emergencies more bearable. Staff at the monument know they've got seed that is adapted to their area. Seeds that are ordered online may not be adapted to the climate or environment if they travel long distances. An hour and a half northwest in Aurora, Nebraska, Mike Bullerman of the Prairie Plains Resource Institute understands. Prairie seed is not one size fits all.
Not at all. These barrels, these 5 mixes, represent about 250 different species that we collect throughout the growing season. Our approach is to do what we call high diversity local ecotype, which means we collect as many species as we can throughout a growing season, and it all needs to come from wild local populations. So they are best suited to do well in any range of conditions.
Harvested by hand and by combine, the barrels represent different topography and different times of the growing season. Preparing to spread seed at a site requires a recipe with the right combination of wetland versus dryland barrels and seeds from throughout spring, summer, and fall.
These barrels here are the combine harvested main grasses, big blue stem, Indian grass, switchgrass. This particular site requires a recipe of 5 of these combine barrels for every 1 barrel of blended seed mix.
The rest of the recipe just calls for some good old-fashioned labor. Despite the dust and the sweat, Sarah Bailey, the greenhouse manager and restoration assistant, says it's still a process she can enjoy.
When we mix and go through the process of creating a mix, you're seeing all that hard work from the harvest go into something where there's, anywhere from 100 to 200 species, and that's going to get out on the ground and become a natural area that's going to be awesome in the future.
It probably is my favorite. This is where the rubber hits the road, or where the seeds hit the ground, I guess. This piece of land has been in a traditional soybean corn rotation up until 2014. It was allowed to go fallow in 2015, and at that time they did some excavation to create some wetlands Then after that, it was shredded and disked to prepare the seed bed for what we're doing today, which is doing a high diversity local ecotype prairie and wetland seeding. I always say that we're using a mix of old and new technology. We've got a couple of four-wheelers pulling 1950s vintage, what were meant to be fertilizer spreaders, but now they're seed spreaders. They just drop the seed on top of the ground. And we also have GPS units mounted on those, so we know where we are at any time in the process. And here it says just over 2 miles is 3 acres. So that looks like about 4.5 acres worth of seed yet. A lot of ideas come into my head throughout the restoration process, and one of those is that these plants that we're working with are the progeny of what were here prior to settlement. Genetically, it represents what's left of Nebraska's natural history. Metaphorically, it represents the future. We're planting seeds, creating prairie plant communities for not only wildlife habitat, but for public to enjoy.